Okay? All right, so maybe if you want to cut everything or cut a portion of it is right here. You see this? Now, this here, you're going to say, well, how deep do I need to go? Well, I want to show you something. Eventually what's going to happen is this thing will be like this, right? So there will be cables going through here. The last thing you want to do is have exposed cables right in between them, because you cut this, or you took this cover here way too far. Right? An example of that, I can go over here. Notice what I'm doing here. Right, that's too long. Even if I went all the way in, I still have what? Exposed. Right. It's not going to look good. It may work, but you have a weak spot here. So every time you're manipulating this connector, eventually one of them will break. You're going to have problems. Now, that's not the end of the work. You can trim this part right here, so it's okay if you cut it a little bit longer. So make sure you keep your trash in one place. I can get over here and cut all of these guys over here if this reaches. And you can see this does not, so this is when that tool comes in handy. Right? It doesn't reach because guess what? There is a clearance between them. Do you see that? Okay. So this tool can come in handy in case you really want to cut. Let's see how far. And I want this here to go in a little bit. Notice what I'm doing. I want it to do what? To go in a little bit. Okay? So I'm going to cut about right here. So just about right here. So there. And notice my tool is a little not sharp, but it will work. If it's not nice and straight, straighten it out. Shave it a little bit. There you go. Okay? If this goes in, and it's still too long, because I want it to be about right here. It's about 1/8 of an inch in for this. Okay? So maybe cut it even more. So it's okay to be conservative initially until you've, so don't be too aggressive to a point where here you're going to have to redo the whole thing. Okay? So once you get that, cut it some more.
So do you want us to use like A or B?
I'll explain that in a minute, so no rush. First, you have to be comfortable with the tools. Right there. Then, depending what he mentioned, you're going to be spreading these wires. Now, this is a Cat 6, so inside of it, you will notice, there's this thing here that gives the strength to the wire. Does that make sense? We're going to cut that one off. You don't need it at this stage. So you're going to cut it off nice and flush right here. That's it. Now you got your wires nice and free. Everybody see that? Okay, now you could spread them like this based on the color that you're going to need. And now we'll see a chart here that says how they're going to be inserted into here. Now, you're going to say, okay, well, which way? The way you're going to insert it, you always look at it from this end, which means you see this thing that sticks out? That goes behind. You're looking at it this way. Okay? And you're going to insert your cable based on the color code that you had in that way. One way, another way to cut straight is to use this tool and not this one, in case this is painful like it just did to me. And notice it's not really nice, because these things are kind of flimsy. There is another way. Notice here where there's a bump, there's a section that does not have a bump. You can go straight here, and guess what's going to happen? Nice and straight. So you could use all-in-one. This is why it's called an all-in-one. You could do everything here instead of a combination of the two tools. Now I have more confidence in this, kind of. And it still doesn't look right. That's because the cables were twisted. Once you straighten them out, then you'll have different heights. Then shave it some more. That's why you have to be a little conservative in terms of what you're doing. Now you have some leeway, but not much in difference in height. And that's going to be equivalent to how high is the actual connector here. Because you want these guys to grab. Okay, so I would say that's about right. Let me just shave it off just a little more. You can see I took off just a little bit. Not much. Just to make it nice and even. And then you're going to insert it, looking at it this way, based on the color code that you had. There are channels in there, and they will go through the channels to the end. One cable per channel. Does that make sense? Based on the color. So once it's in, then you're going to take the whole thing right here. Okay? Now you're going to say, where do I insert it in the tool? Now there's a stopper on this end. And no stopper on this end. So you're going to insert it from here. The stopper basically is going to say how far this goes. So this is going to go in like this. Make sure the teeth line up with the connectors right there. There. So now I'm in. The teeth will line up with the connectors. There are teeth in there. You see that? There are teeth on this end that line up with the connectors. Do you see it? Okay. Now, assuming my cable is in, nothing is moving, and I'm holding it nice and steady. And I squeeze. Okay? And once you squeeze it in, these connectors are going to go in. They have teeth. They're going to go right through the shielding of each one of these. And they're going to be in contact with the inner copper conductor that's inside. In theory, that's it. You're done. You do the same thing on the other side. Does that make sense? I highly recommend that you actually cut the length that you need first and then strip both ends. Measure. And then crimp both one after the other. Crimp one, make sure everything is fine, then move on to the next side. Put all the wires in, make sure everything is lined up. Okay, we're going to see what the A and B business is. Okay, and you're done. So if you're going to do straight through, somebody mentioned A and B. You could do an A configuration on one end and an A configuration on the other. Or a B configuration on one end and a B configuration, as long as they're both the same. Crossover, one will be an A, the other one is a B. It doesn't matter which order. Okay, and that's what we're going to lay out on the board here. We're going to see what those are. And again, as specified by the IEEE, including the suggested color code. Now, some people might say, well, wouldn't it matter what color it is? Could I just pick? You could. The problem with that is you're not standardizing your connection. So if somebody else is going in there, they may not see it as a standard connection. It may not pass a certain test. Maybe it's a requirement that you follow the IEEE requirements. Part of the contract, which could void that whole cable, even if it works. Does that make sense? Okay? So make sure that you're doing that right. So in my case, I'm going to cut this again. Okay? You can cut the whole thing right here. Do you see this? Let's say I want this about this length. The max length that I want you to do about an arm length. a little less than an arm length, about right here. Okay, that's plenty enough for any of the labs we're doing. Get back here. Keep your hands clear. There's a blade in there. That will cut your finger. Notice how nice the cut goes through? Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. This time I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go where the notch is. Before I do the notch, if I want to estimate approximately where I need to be, take your connector and say, I'm going to notch it about right here. That way I have a little bit of that going in. I don't have to do a lot of, because if it cut it nice and straight, then use that edge. That make sense? So you don't have to trim it again. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say about right here. Keep your hand off, out of the way. And then slightly, don't go all the way through, because if you do, you might injure some of the cables inside by going through their insulation. So just like this, and notice here, just a twist. And usually should work if the blade is sharp enough. There you go. See that? Now, inspect. Now I have a magnifier somewhere. Inspect and make sure that the edges here, you didn't go through with the blade. Does that make sense? That would be a big no-no. Okay? So now it looks nice and clean. Next thing you know, the reason I'm going to use this tool now is to cut the inner core that I don't need. So spread these around. Cut the inner core here. Be careful not to cut any of the wires. Bring it in. Verify again the height and everything. And that looks about right. You see that? As far as how far it will go and how far this will go in. Now the way you're going to again put your color code and the insertion will be done this way. Are we clear? Not this way, but this way. Okay? So everything you see on the board is seeing it on this side, not this side. Okay? So this one is ready for a straight through or a crossover. Okay? Again, I didn't verify initially. This one looks good. Okay, so now, all right, get to your seats. Let me pull out the diagrams that you're going to follow.